Hey guys, it's Jeremy again. We're going to do another lap guide video. Today we are at Watkins Glen International. We're running the boot layout. We're in the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R. We're running the fixed setup per usual here in IRPAS. I'm in a test session, but I set one up off of one of the practice sessions we've got running this week, so all the track conditions, weather, things like that are going to be pretty much the same that we're working with come Saturday. We're going to run this lap guide video the same way we did the guides in the past. I'll just run the lap at speed, and then we'll play it back and break down some of the key points, some of the areas you want to focus on. I was able to pull off a 143.304. It's my best lap. It's a pretty quick lap around here in the fixed setup. It's usually tough to get that good of a lap out of it without taking a little bit of wing off the car at least. I did crank the brake bias back to 53.5. I think it normally comes out of the box at like 55.1. So it's significantly further back than what you're normally dealing with. But I found it really helps mitigate a lot of the understeer that a lot of these cars pick up on corner entry here on the Glen. Without further ado, let's get it. And across the line. So as you can see, we're able to pull off a 143.304. Like I said, it's a pretty good lap around here. There were a couple points that I messed my line up a little bit, compromised the time a little bit. So there's still some more out there, but this is definitely a solid benchmark. Coming across the line is pretty straightforward. Not too much you can do wrong here. Setting up the entry to turn 1, the 90. We're looking at a braking zone somewhere between the 3 and 200 meter board. You can push it a little bit deeper if you want to, but the longest straight on the track follows this corner. It's your biggest acceleration zone, the longest run the car is going to get. So the main goal is to get a really strong exit out of the first corner. It also helps defend yourself from any moves that are going to be coming going into the bus stop down the line. You keep the car along the left-hand side, down into the third. As you can see, I'm working just the rotation towards the apex. Having the brake bias back really helps kind of just slide the car in. And as soon as I can tell that the front end is kind of complying with what I'm trying to do, we're back on the throttle. We're already back up at 100% throttle, and we barely kind of hit the apex at this point. And you can let the car run pretty far out to the left here. The goal is to keep your right side tires on this painted section of the curb. If your right side tires get dragged off the curbing here, it's going to be an off track. And if you run too far out to the left, you'll pick up a slowdown. So you want to just try and err on the side of the caution. I usually try and just keep this line where the painted curbing ends about midline with the car. Sometimes I err a little bit further than that, but that's usually a good safety net to go off of. And then we just set up our run through the S's up the hill. This part's pretty straightforward. You just kind of ease in your steering as much as you can. Small movements of the steering wheel, work the car to the right, back to the left, and then back to the right up here at the top. Nice deliberately through the gears. I found holding fifth in the Corvette until I get to the top of the crest helps, and so it's kind of car dependent on where your gearing leaves you there. Coming into the bus stop, we're looking to set up our braking right around, again, in between the 200 and 300 meter board. It all depends on your level of commitment and how well your car can handle the bumps coming through here. I'm on the brakes just past the 200 meter board here because we're in full push mode. Down to fifth over this first set of curbs. And then you'll see I'm back on the brakes and down into fourth. And this is just to get the nose of the car to work back over to the left after launching it over the curbs on entry. And as soon as I can feel that the front end is not washing out on me, we're hard back on the throttle, and that helps complete the rotation through the bus stop. The front tires have kind of given up the ghost at this point. They have been bounced across the road and don't really want to do anything. So getting back on throttle kind of helps the back end push the car the rest of the way through the rotation. You can straddle pretty much this entire curb here. I haven't found it slows the car down any taking this line. You just don't want to go off in the grass if you can avoid it. Working our way out of the bus stop, back onto the outer loop. This corner is an interesting one. You want to try and rotate it as best you can and just feel the slip of the car through the corner. And it's just a balancing act of feeling the grip, and once you can feel that the car is complying with your line through the corner, you can give it all the throttle, and then you just ride the line out to the exit, avoiding that outside wall. You can use this whole runoff area pretty much, again, just straddling that curb. And then we work our way back over to the right, down the chute, into the laces. This is turn 6. Down into fourth. This is a nice trail braking corner. See, we're nice and slow, bleeding off the speed. Down into third. Still on the brakes a little bit. And then as soon as I can tell that the car isn't washing out on me, we're back on the throttle. We can't even see the corner exit here, and we're fully committed to full throttle. You can let the car run out to the right here. You want to avoid going too far onto this curb, just because where this fat part of the curb ends, there's a nice little lip here that's kind of hidden, and it tends to kick the car up in the air a little bit, and it kills your acceleration out of the corner. You'll see I hit it a little bit there, but just a small bump. And then we've got our little run into the toe. It's turn 7. Keep the car along the left-hand side. I'm braking again in between the 200 and 100 meter board. Down into 5th, 4th, down into 3rd. And we're just kind of waiting for the speed to gradually bleed off here. It's an uphill right-hander, so you don't have to brake too aggressively. The hill will slow the car down a lot for you. The main goal is to maintain as much speed on entry as you can, because that leaves you having to accelerate less coming out of the corner, if that makes sense. You're asking less of the rear tires through this section here. I hop up on the curb there on the inside, which is less than ideal, and you'll see it pushes me pretty far out on this exit here. I was just able to keep it on track, but not much further than this, and you pick up an off track coming out of the toe. We've got a little short chute here on our way down to the heel. Just work your car up through the gears, keeping along the left-hand side of the road. Coming up here again, in between the 100 and 200 meter board is when I commit to braking. Down into 4th, down into 3rd. This is another kind of trail brake corner, but I like to induce some over-rotation on entry with the brake bias this far back, and it helps the car just kind of slide around this corner, and then you just spend your time catching it with the steering wheel more than anything. And as soon as you can tell that the front end is kind of listening to you tossing it around, I'm back on the throttle. And we're hard just pushing the back end of the car around with the throttle. It helps keep that rotation going. And just running it all the way out to the left-hand side here. If you go too far out over these curbings, you get an off track. So you want to make sure that you keep at least 2 wheels on the good side of the road. Coming out of the heel, we're working our way up to turn 9. This is kind of a tricky corner just because it's this like tabletop setting. You're coming up the hill And you need to get a decent amount of your braking done here on the uphill, because if you do too much, or if you wait too long to get your braking done, the car tends to wash out up at the top here, and there isn't that much grip on the outside. It's not necessarily the slowest line through the corner, but if you aren't expecting it, it really compromises your exit of turn 9. Down into third. I try and keep it in third here as long as I don't screw my lineup too bad, as long as the front end doesn't wash out. And it helps just kind of keep the car more stable when I do go back to applying the power. And then you're just running it out to the right-hand side of your exit here. Almost done with the lap. Coming up on turn 10. This is an interesting corner. I found a lot of the cars benefit from a slight lift and an upshift depending on where you are in the gear ratio. Like you'll see here, I'm in fourth. I grab fifth right before the corner just so I can lift. But I stay in fifth. A little bit of braking just to keep the car online, and then hard back on the throttle, and then it run out to the right-hand side. You can go pretty far to the right out here. Straddling the curb isn't really forbidden, but it's not the quickest way through. Only if you're really just going ballistic and carrying a butt ton of speed into the corner does it make sense to run that far out to the right, because the main goal coming through here is to get the car back over to the left and set up your run into the final corner. That's one of my favorite final corners of all the tracks that we've gone to. Keep the car over to the left-hand side. You want to avoid getting your tires on the grass over here. It completely ruins your entry to the corner. It'll usually kick the car out a little bit on you, and then you have that little panic moment where you're focused more on catching the car than setting up your line through here. Down into fourth. And again, as soon as I can tell that the front of the car is complying with my line on entry, we're back on the throttle. I found it really helps keep the back of the car pushing through the corner and helps keep that rotation that you induce on entry going. It's flirting with disaster though. We see this giant blue wall waiting for us on exit. You want to run out as far as you can. You'll see I kick up some sparks there. On the left-hand side, we like just barely kissed the wall with the mirror there. Not enough to bring any damage our way, but you do want to be careful come race time. It's very easy to just pick up little bits of damage lap after lap. If you're not careful, you can really just whack your steering coming out of that corner. So just be prepared to back out of it if you do screw your line up. And then just accelerate your way through and across the line. So yeah, again, we were able to pull off a 143.304. Running the fix setup. We did crank the brake bias back to 53.5, but there's no smoke and mirrors, no crazy nonsense going on here. Track conditions were pretty much what we're going to get this weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.